17. Forest, our lifeline. One evening, Bojo entered the park with an elderly person. He introduced him to his friends. Professor Ahmed was a scientist working in the university. The children started playing while Professor Ahmed sat on a bench in the corner. He was tired as he had participated in the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the town. After a while, the children also came and sat around him. They wanted to know about the celebration. Professor Ahmed told them that after the cultural program, the senior people discussed the town's unemployment problem. A plan was proposed to put up a factory by clearing an area of the forest just outside the town. This would give the increasing population of the town a chance to get jobs. The children were very surprised when Professor Ahmed told them that many people had objected to this idea. Figure: a view of a forest. This is because the forests are serve as green lungs and water purifying system in nature, Professor Ahmed explained. The children were confused. Professor Ahmed realized that the children had not visited a forest. The children also wanted to know more about the forest, so they decided to visit it with Professor Ahmed. 17.1 Visit to a forest. One Sunday morning, the children packed a few things like a knife, a hand lens, a stick, and notebook, and walked together through a forest trail near a village. On their way, they met Tibu, a young boy of their age group of nearby village, who was taking cattle for grazing along with his aunt. He was very agile, running here and there to keep the herd together. When he saw the children, Tibu also started walking along with them, while his aunt went on a different path. As soon as they entered the forest, Tibu raised his hand and signaled them to keep quiet because noise could disturb the animals living in the forest. Tibu then took them to a place at a height to show them the broad view of the forest. Children were surprised because they could not see any land figure. The different treetops had formed green cover over the land. However, the cover was not uniformly green. The environmental was peaceful and a cool breeze was blowing. This made children quite fresh and happy. While coming down, they got excited on hearing sudden sounds of birds and some noise from the top branches of the trees. Tibu told them to relax since it was a normal phenomenon here. Because of the children's presence, some monkeys had climbed higher up on the trees where they disturbed the birds. Animals often give this type of warning call to alert other animals. Tibu also told that many other animals like boar, bison, jackals, porcupine, elephants live in the deeper areas of the forest. Figure: Professor Ahmed cautioned children that they should not go deep into the forest. Bojo and Paheli remembered that they have studied about forest as figure: forest as habitat. An example of a habitat in class 6. They could see now how the forest provides a home for many animals and plants. Figure: some forest animals. Neem, sesame, shimal, bamboo. Some forest plants. Figure: some forest plants. The land where the children were walking was uneven and covered with many trees. Tipu helped them to identify shal, teak, simal, sesame, neem, palas, fig, khahir, amla, bamboo, kachnar, figure. Professor Ahmad pointed out that there are several other trees, shrubs, herbs, and grasses in the forest. The forest flower and the trees were also covered with different types of creepers and climbers. The sun was barely visible through the leaves of the trees, making it quite dark inside the forest. Activity 17.1. Do this. Observe the various things in your home and make a list of those which are made from material been which may have been obtained from the forest. You might have many wooden items on your list like plywood, fuelwood, boxes, paper, matchsticks, and furniture. Do you know that gum, oils, spices, fodder for animal and medicinal plants are also some of the products which we get from the forest? Figure. Based on the products that we get from plants, try to fill table. One example of each plant is already given. Fill the table by adding more examples. Sheila wondered, who would have planted these trees? Professor Ahmed replied that in nature trees produce enough seeds. The forest flower provides favorable conditions for them to germinate and develop into seedlings. Honey, sealing wax, wooden statue, gum, catchu, figure, forest products, and saplings. Some grow up into trees. He added that branchy part of a tree above the stem is known as the crown of the tree. Figure. Professor Ahmed asked children to look up and observe how the branches of the tall trees look like a roof over the other plants in the forest. He told them that this is called a canopy. Figure. Activity 17.2. Visit a forest or a park in your neighborhood. Observe the trees and try to identify them. You can take the help of some elders or books on trees. List the characteristics of the trees that you observe, such as the height, shape of leaves, crown, flowers, and fruits. Also draw the crowns of some trees. Professor Ahmed pointed out that trees had crowns of different types and sizes. This had created different horizontal layers in the forest. These are known as understories. Figure. Giant and tall trees constituted the top layer, followed by shrubs and tall grasses, and herbs formed the lowest layer. Figure. Some crown shapes. Table, plants and their products: gum, timber, medicinal oil. Gum, bubble, timber, sesame, medicinal, neem, oil, sandalwood. Do this and comment this. Canopy, understory. Figure. Canopy and understories in a forest. Would we see similar kind of trees in every forest? Asked Bojo. Professor Ahmed said, no, due to different climatic conditions, there are variation in the types of trees and other plants. The types of animals also differ from forest to forest. A few children were busy watching beautiful butterflies fluttering here and there on the flowers of shrubs and herbs. Forest floor. Figure. They had a close look at the bushes. While doing that, their hair and clothes had sheets and thorns clinging to them. They came across numerous insects, spiders, squirrels, ants, and various other small animals on the bark of the trees, plant leaves, and on decaying leaves on the forest floor. Figure. They started making sketches of these creatures. The forest floor seemed dark colored and was covered with a layer of dead and decaying leaves, fruits, seeds, twigs, and small herbs. The decaying matter was moist and warm. Children picked up various seeds and leaves for their collection. Walking over the dead leaf layer on the forest floor was like walking over a spongy carpet. Is the decaying matter always warm? Professor Ahmed suggested that the children could perform an activity to get an answer to this question. Activity 17.3. Do this. Dig a small pit. Put vegetable waste and leaves in it. Cover them with soil. Add some water. After 3 days, remove the upper layer of the soil. Does the pit feel warm inside? Paheli asked. There are so many trees here. Also, there are many forests like this. What difference will it make if we cut some trees for a factory? Professor Ahmed said, you have read about autotrophs, heterotrophs, and saprotrophs. You have learned how green plants produce food. All animals, whether herbivores or carnivores, depend ultimately on plants for food. Organisms which feed on plants often get eaten by other organisms, and so on. For example, grass is eaten by insects, which in turn is taken by the frog. The frog is consumed by egg snakes. This is said to form a food chain. Grass to insects to frog to snake to eagle. Many food chains can be found in the forest. All food chains are linked. If any one food chain is disturbed, it affects other food chains. Every part of the forest is dependent on the other parts. If we remove one component, say trees, all other components would be affected. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, photosynthesis, decomposer, nutrients, soil, water. Figure, interrelationship of plant, soil and decomposer in a forest. Professor Ahmed asked children to pick up leaves from the forest floor and observe them under a hand lens. They found tiny mushrooms over the decaying leaves. They also saw an army of tiny insects, millipedes, ants, and beetles on them. They were wondering how these organisms live there. Professor Ahmed explained that apart from these animals, which are easily seen, there are several organisms and microorganisms that live in the soil. Paheli wondered what mushroom and other microorganisms eat. Professor Ahmed replied that they feed upon the dead plant and animal tissues and convert them into a dark colored substance called humus. You have learned about humus in chapter 9. In which layer of the soil would you find humus? What is its importance to the soil? The microorganisms which convert the dead plants and animals to humus are known as decomposers. These microorganisms play an important role in the forest. Soon, Paheli removed some dead leaves and discovered under them a layer of humus on forest floors. The presence of humus ensures that the nutrients of the dead plants and animals are released into the soil. From there, these nutrients are again absorbed by the roots of the living plants. What happens if an animal dies in the forest? Sheila asked. Tibu replied the dead animals became food for vultures, crows, jackals, and insects. In this way, the nutrients are cycled, so nothing goes waste in a forest. Figure. Paheli reminded Professor Ahmed that he had not explained why forests are called green lungs. Professor Ahmed explained that plant releases oxygen through the process of photosynthesis. The plants help to provide oxygen for animal respiration. They also maintain the Paheli reminded their friend that they have studied photosynthesis in chapter 1. Oxygen to animals to carbon dioxide to plants. Figure balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere figure. That is why forests are called lungs. The children saw clouds forming in the sky. Bojo recalled what he had learned about the water cycle in class 6. Trees take in water from their roots and release water vapor into the air through evaporation. If there were fewer trees, how will the water cycle be affected? Tibu told them that the forest is not just home to plants and animals. Many people also live in the forest. Sum up. They may belong to different tribes. Tibu explained that these people depend mostly on the forest. The forest provides them with food, shelter, water, and medicines. They have traditional knowledge about many medicinal plants in the forest. While Bojo was drinking water from a small stream, he saw some deer crossing the stream figure. They disappeared into the bushes. The dense bushes and the tall grass provide animals with the food and shelter. They figure deer in a forest. Pahel remembered that she saw a pipal sapling on the side wall in her school. Can you help her to understand how this would have happened? Also protect them from carnivores that live in the forest. Tibu then started looking closely at the forest floor. Soon he called in and so showed the children droppings of some animals and explained the difference between various types of droppings. Professor Ahmed informed them that the forest officers could recognize the presence of some animals in the forest by their droppings and footprints. Bojo called everyone and showed them a large decaying heap of animal dropping. Several beetles and grubs were feeding on the heap and a bunch of seedlings were sprouting. These seedlings are of the herbs and shrubs. Figure a sapling on a wall. The animals also disperse the seeds of certain plants and help the forest to grow and regenerate. The decaying animal dung also provides nutrients to the seedlings to grow, said Professor Ahmed. After listening to this, Bojo noted in his notebook, by harboring greater variety of plants, the forest provides greater opportunities for food and habitats for the herbivores. Larger number of herbivores means increased availability of food for a variety of rain, transpiration and evaporation. The closed canopy and many layers of vegetation slow down the speed of raindrops. Root system. Covered ground with decaying materials act like a sponge. The root system helps water to seep down in the ground. Water level. Figure rainwater drifts from the trees and seeps into the grounds. Carnivores. The wide variety of animals help the forest to regenerate and grow. Decomposers help in maintaining the supply of nutrients to the grow plants. In the forest, therefore, the forest is a dynamic living entity full of life and vitality. It was about afternoon and the children wanted to go back. Tibu suggested another route for going back. While they were going back, it started raining. However, surprisingly, they saw that the raindrops were not hitting the forest floor directly. The uppermost layer of the forest canopy intercepted the flow of raindrops, and most of the water was coming down through the branches and the stems of the trees. From the leaf sheet, was dripping slowly over branches of the shrubs and herbs. Figure. They found that the ground was still dry. After about half an hour, the rain stopped. They noticed that the layer of dead leaves over the forest floor appeared wet now, but water did not stagnate in the forest. Bojo thought that if it had rained so heavily in his town, it would have flooded the drain and roads. What would happen if it rains heavily in your town? Professor Ahmed told them that the forest also acts as a natural absorber of rainwater and allows it to seep. It helps maintain the water table throughout the year. Forests not only help in controlling floods but also help maintain the flow of water in the streams so that we get a steady supply of water. On the other hand, if trees are not present, rain hits the ground directly and may flood the area around it. Heavy rain may also damage the soil. Roots of trees normally bind the soil together. Bind in their absence, the soil is washed away or eroded. The children spent an hour at Tebu's village on their way back. The weather of the village was quite pleasant. Villagers told them that due to the surrounding forest, they received good rainfall. The air also remained cool. Noise pollution too is less because the forest absorbed the noise of the nearby highway. The children learnt about the history of the village. It surprised them that the villages and the agricultural fields of that area were created after clearing the forest about 60 years ago. Tebu's grandfather told them that when he was young, the village was not as large as it was now. It was also surrounded by forest. Construction of roads, buildings, industrial development, and increasing demand of wood created pressure on the forest and it started vanishing. He was not happy that the forest adjoining their village is not regenerating and is on the verge of disappearing due to overgrazing of animals and indiscriminate felling of trees. Professor Ahmed said that if we did things wisely, we could preserve forest and environment as well as have development. Children prepared a few pictures to show the consequences of such an event. At the end of the visit, Professor Ahmed asked children to sum up the importance of forest. The children wrote, "Forest provides us with oxygen. They protect soil and provide habitat to a large number of animals. Forests help in bringing good rainfall in neighboring areas. They are a source of medicinal plants, timber, and many other useful products. We must preserve our forest." What would happen if forests disappear? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. If forests disappear, the amount of carbon dioxide in air will increase, resulting in the increase of Earth's temperature. 2. In the absence of trees and plants, the animals will not get food and shelter. 3. In the absence of trees, the soil will not hold water, which will cause flood. 4. Deforestation will endanger our life and environment. Think what we can do to preserve our forest. Keywords: canopy, crown, decomposers, deforestation, humus, regeneration, seed dispersal, soil erosion, understory. What you have learned? We get various products from the forest surrounding us. Forest is a system comprising various plants, animals, and microorganisms. In a forest, trees form the uppermost layers, followed by shrubs, the herbs from the lowest layers of vegetation. Different layers of vegetation provide food and shelter for animals, birds, and insects. The various components of the forest are interdependent on one another. The forest keeps on growing and changing and can regenerate. In the forest, there is interaction between soil, water, air, and living organisms. Forests protect the soil from erosion. Soils helps forests to grow and regenerate. Forests are the lifeline for the forest dwelling communities. Forests influence climate, water cycle, and air quality. Exercises. Do, do this and comment this. Figure carbon dioxide, oxygen, extended learning activities and project. Do this and comment this. Did you know? In India, the area under forest cover is about 21% of the total area. It had steadily been falling since independence. But people now seem to have realized the importance of the forest cover. Reports suggest that the area under forest cover has slightly increased in recent years.